Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. My name is Aseem Trivedi. I'm son of Subhash Tiwari and Premlata Tiwari. We are active members at BSNA. So I would like to thank everyone for giving me an opportunity to talk about Patanjali Yoga Sutra, one of my favorite subjects, personal favorite. So my talk would be structured in three different parts. The first one, I would define Raja Yoga. Then we would jump into introduction of Patanjali Yoga Sutra, which has 8 aspects to it, Ashtanga Yoga. And then I can talk about some of the meditation practices which you can use, not how to do meditation, just like some things which can help you do that because each mind is different. So it's impossible to give uh, instruction which would be specific to you. So let's get started. So, what is yoga, specifically Raja Yoga, and its goal? So, if I have to define Raja Yoga, I would say it is a science which helps you to control your mind so that you can reach the highest goal. And what is the highest goal for our religion? Highest goal for our religion is liberation from birth and death. That is attaining moksha, samadhi, nirvana, whatever you want to call it. So that has been the major tenet for all the Indic religion, which is Sanatan Dharma, that you need to understand what is real and what is not real. And Raja Yoga gives you a very practical method to get to it. I said the word science because Raja Yoga has an instrument, which is your own mind. And then you have these empirical methods which you can use. You can track your progress. The main aim of Raja Yoga is concentration of your mind because how mind is structured right now is that by its nature, it is outward looking. All these senses, they give you inputs and then it goes to the mind and then mind reacts to it. But in order to get to the highest reality and then perceive it, what is real and unreal, you have to turn the mind inwards, and that is what we call meditation. So, meditation, if I have to define it, it is a method where you're retraining your brain. And that is something which has been in vogue right now. It's called neuroplasticity. And then our ancestors knew it for thousands of years. So, what you can do is you can rewire your brain so that the emotional part, the emotional aspect of your brain, which basically drives 90% of what you do and what you think, gets changed over a period of time. And then you start to delineate what is the right way and what is the right path. As I touched upon that, I want to also bring up two things because Sanatan Dharma is like the theme of this BSNA convention. The difference between East and West. So the Western Abrahamic religion, they focus more on outward expression and expansion, while in the East, which is like the Indic religions, Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, and so on and so forth, they went inwards. So they took that thing really seriously because when they realized that nothing outside was giving them permanent happiness, so they turned inwards to find the solution. And the more they turned inwards, they realized that the solution right was within, which is understanding your soul. So Swami Vivekananda has given this definition of religion, which says that each soul is potentially divine. The whole purpose of religion is to manifest the divinity within. And Raj Yoga, from my perspective, is one of the best methods, especially for people who have rational mind, who want to do something and see the results. So, with that being said, let's talk about Patanjali and Patanjali Yoga Sutra. So, Patanjali was a sage. He, from my understanding, is a contemporary to Gautam Buddha, and he was the first person to codify and write a manual about yoga. So that does not mean that he was the one who founded yoga. Yoga was being practiced. He was the one who basically wrote it down in a manual, which has helped us a lot. And he's that's why I consider the father of yoga because all the school of thoughts after that, which developed, can trace back the stuff which he has written in his book, which is Yoga Sutra. So what he has done is that he had around 195 sutras since at that time you didn't have printing press. So he codified these in 200 different lines. It's actually 195 line. And then they are very dense, very packed, but then you have to read through it to understand what exactly it means. There are a lot of people who have written commentary about it. The few I could recommend is from, first of all, Swami Vivekanand, his book Raja Yoga. Then you have another book, which is right here. It's by Sachidananda. This is one of my favorites, but there are others which I can put it in the chat later. So Patanjali Yoga Sutra has 8 aspects to it. That's why it's called Ashtanga Yoga. The first one is, and I can quickly go through it. And while I'm going through it, I'm going to try to define it and then also give you some pointers how you can use it. The first one is in Ashtanga Yoga, Yam. Yam is like your social interaction that has 5 subcomponents to it. So in order to make progress in meditation, you need to have these social rules and you need to follow that so that you can sit in meditation with peace. The first one is non-violence. Non-violence physically and also mentally. Like you should not even think about hurting someone in thoughts. You would never find a yogi who is violent. So that's one piece which is very important. Truthfulness, which across the board, what I've read is if you're truthful, then you're sinless, and then you can make really good progress in meditation. The third one is non-stealing. What is not yours, you should not look at it in a way where you want to take it. Even in thoughts, you should not steal it. For example, if you see a car, a fancy car, and if it belongs to someone else, you should just enjoy the sight of it. You should not think about like, oh, can I also get it? Can that be me? So like it's basically like jealousy. Should not have jealousy. The third one is, third one I talked about. The fourth one is celibacy. Celibacy is just having one sex partner. And then in their sense, people who are brahmacharis, they should not indulge in sex. That's what they meant. But for us, is just being faithful to your partner. The last one is, which is very interesting, is non-receiving of gifts. According to the yoga, Raja Yoga, and the yoga philosophy, what they say is that as soon as we receive gifts from someone, we are in depth with that person, and then the energy of that person gets transferred. So for us, especially like while you are progressing through meditation and you have not reached the goal, now you should avoid taking gifts across the board. So that covers Yam. Let's move on to Niyam. Niyam is self-regulation. This is very simple, like the rules which you should follow for yourself. The first one being cleanliness of your physical body, but also your mind. Like you should think about good stuff. Second is contentment, which like I struggle, and I think a lot of people struggle around that, is like satisfaction with what you have. That does not mean that you don't aim for the highest. What it means is that you should just be happy with what you get. And whenever you're doing your work, whatever the results are, leave it up to the higher self, which is God or whoever you believe in. Third is austerity. Austerity is tapasya in Hindi, basically making sure that you're persevering, like you're not giving up, and then you have some kind of spiritual practice as a part of your day. If not, then at least like perseverance in whatever method you pick. Fourth one is study of spiritual wisdom. This is to cleanse your mind, because as you read these spiritual books, and I would recommend reading spiritual books written by people who have realized themselves, like who have reached liberation, or Upanishad or Bhagavad Gita is like the best book you can ever find. There is chapter 6 in there, which talks primarily about yoga and how you should be meditating if you're interested. Then the last one is devotion to God, and that means have complete faith. If you don't believe in God, that's also fine, but have faith at least in yourself. That is important to make progress. Third is asana, which is like the favorite in Western part of the world. Hatha yoga is one aspect of it. So if you think about it, why asana is there, and then it became popular because it does make your body fit. And if your body is fit, you live for a long time. But it is part of the Ashtanga yoga, and it became famous because it helps you make your body fit so that you can sit in meditation for a long period of time. So if your body is fit, you can pick a posture where the posture should be your spine should be straight, your neck, chest, and head should be in the straight line, and you have to sit with your legs crossed. And if your body is not fit, you won't be able to sit for a long time. So that is the main aim of asanas. Uh, One thing which you can practice for asana is Surya Namaskar. You can Google it, and I can put it in the presentation which would be sent out, where you can read about it. There are books, but then you can easily find videos to do it. Fourth one, which is my personal favorite, is pranayam. Pranayam is control of the energy. And what does that mean? Energy is pervading the whole universe. It is the same energy which has manifested this whole universe, which is basically in my body and helping me talk. It's the same energy has been changed into a different form, which is very interesting to note here that our Hindu philosophy matches exactly with what the modern physics says. For us, there is Brahman, which is inactive, but there is active aspect of it, which is Shakti, which projects the universe outside. And then this, what is being projected is pure energy, and energy interacts with matter to create whole of universe, including our body and mind. So what pranayama is saying is that the prana, which is the energy in the body being used, if you can control that, then you would be able to control your mind, because mind is also run by energy, which is your brain, which is creating those thoughts. And drawing parallel to modern physics, Big Bang Theory, the whole universe coming out of existence from nothing, and then E is equal to mc squared, energy interacting with mass, creating all of universe. So there are different pranic practice which you can use. And then here, which I learned is that pranayam is not breathing exercise, but it is essentially the control of the muscles of your lungs, which causes you to breathe. So when you're doing pranayam, don't concentrate on your breath, rather than concentrate on the muscle, which is basically helping you breathe. So once you understand and gain control of one aspect of it, you can control the whole body, because the same prana which is being used for breathing is being used for other things, and especially the most subtle part is your thoughts. And then the whole aspect of Raja Yoga is to control your thoughts. Then moving on, Pratyahar is drawing your mind away from the sense objects. It's like how the turtle does it, like it draws everything inside. Similarly, rather than senses pulling us out, we should train our mind in such a way that I have such a focus that the senses are not pulling me in every direction. It is me who is deciding that, oh, now I need to listen to this music. Now I need to give this speech, and the next I'll go eat. It's not that if I smell something and now my mind is diverted and I just think about the sweet which is being cooked there. So that's Pratyahar. Dharan is where we get into meditation. So in Ashtanga Yoga, number 6, 7, and 8 are related to meditation, but this is a very difficult thing to do, meditation, because it's training your mind, and mind has been compared to monkey. So in order to do that, there are three parts to it. The first one is dharan. Dharan is trying to concentrate your mind at a spot. Basically, like you decide on the object of your meditation, which can be an idol, which can be a good scenery which you like, or something. It can also be just an image or whatever you feel like. It has to be an object which pleases your mind, and then that becomes the object of your meditation. So now for dharan, you're just trying to concentrate on that. So if you are able to concentrate without any other thoughts for 12 seconds, that's called one dharan. The second stage is dhyan. Dhyan directly translates to meditation, right? And dhyan has basically 12 into 12. So 12 dharan results in one dhyan. So if you think that you are doing meditation, so if you're doing it for 144 seconds on a spot without thinking about any other thing, that is one dhyan. And the last one is samadhi, which is the goal of all of these practices, is to attain the super consciousness, where you realize that what you really are, where the energy from the lower chakra, which is like Muladhara, goes to Sahasrara, piercing through all the seven chakras, where you realize that you are Brahman and everything else is unreal. So that takes care of Ashtanga Yoga. I know that was a lot of information, but what you can do is like whichever part is interesting to you, you can start there. But keep in mind that all these parts, like this eight, it's like a wheel. So you cannot neglect one and think that you can attain the other. So they're all interconnected. So now, lastly, I'll talk about some meditation practices which can help you, and then we can end this talk. The first one is, if you're starting your meditation, make sure that you have you're regular with your practice. You define when you want to do it, because mind plays a lot of trick. As soon as you'll do it, it'll tell you, no, I need to do this, or I'll do meditation after doing shopping, or I'll do it after reading this. So you just need to just sit there, and then initially it will be very difficult, but you have to suffer through it, and then slowly and steadily you'll start enjoying it. The second one is having fixed time for meditation. You have to make sure that you define a time and then you do it during that time. So usually morning works, and then evening or late night also works, because then you don't have other stuff going on. Otherwise, there's like conflicting priorities. The third one is you should fix a place, because that the energy, the aura also helps you to get there. And you should have your chosen deity or idol in front of you to help you fix. The fourth one is they should avoid bad company. And then they say that you should avoid any company at the beginning, but I don't want you to be antisocial, but you should just meet with people who uplift you rather than like pull you back or pull you down. Fifth one is I talked about define your object of meditation. That is very important at the beginning, because since mind is going in every direction, something you look up to, you can put their image in front of yourself. And as soon as you look at that image, it immediately calms your mind. It also helps to listen to good music. There are different ragas you can play. There are different meditation music. Binaural beats also helps, or any music which you like. I don't think that Bollywood dance music would help, but like any meditative music. And then have complete faith in yourself and also in the scriptures. Only then you will be able to make progress. So that's all I had. And I'm going to share all the books and stuff which has helped me to get here. But I was really privileged to share my knowledge, which is limited. And I'm still working on myself as I'm talking through these, because I have to work on most of these items. But I'm really proud that our ancestors gave us this knowledge, and it still holds good in 21st century. Actually, it holds good more than ever, especially during a pandemic. This was something which helped me a lot to get through it. If you haven't practiced, or if you haven't started practicing it, I would highly recommend. This is in your blood. Our ancestors, who were the brightest minds, they left everything, and then they perfected it, and they left it for us. So it is imperative that we take it forward, and then we realize the highest truth. Thank you. Pranam.